Recording in progress.
It's 5:30. Yeah, she said she's running a little late. Angela said she's running a little bit late.
The council special city council meeting, April 6th, 2026.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Here.
Mayor Park,
Here.
Councilmember Calderon,
Here.
Councilmember Roberts.
Here.
And Councilmember Sanchez is absent.
Any participation forum, members of the public may address the city council on matters not listed on the agenda. City council may not discuss or take action on any community participation item brought forward by a member of the community. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. We have a consent agenda. We have no consent agenda. We'll move to items of consideration.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for taking time to speak with me this evening. As you know, our cooperative agreement expires on July 1st, and so the agreement is up for renewal. And so I wanted to present the new agreement to you and then also discuss our level of service that we provide here in the city of Gridley. Next slide, please. Okay, so it's Station 74. All of you are familiar with it, 47 East Gridley Road. It is a county-owned facility, and out of it operates 2 apparatus. So you have Engine 74, which is on the right side of the picture, and Truck 74 on the left side, the ladder truck. The ladder truck is city-funded, both the apparatus itself as well as the personnel, and the engine is county-funded. So the staffing on the engine is 3-person staffing. We call it traditional staffing, meaning that there's a fire captain, a fire apparatus engineer, and a firefighter on that apparatus at any given time. And so what that does is the captain's able to receive information from dispatch, weigh the information, make operational decisions, navigate through the scene, direct men for those that are working under him. And then and so that captain would sit on the passenger side of the apparatus. And then on the driver's side, you have the engineer that is driving. Once they arrive at scene, they spot the apparatus, they put in pump, they're securing a water supply, setting up lighting, fans, and other support functions outside of the structure typically. And then riding in the back seat is a firefighter that does a lot of operational tasks associated with firefighting, using saws, hand tools, pulling hose lines and operating them in the interior, that type of thing. So that staffing model is kind of the industry standard. It allows that captain to be back, not engaged in like the tasks directly in front of him, but looking at the wider picture and making decisions for the safety of their crew and for the safety of the public. So that's what the goal for staffing countywide is to reach that traditional staffing model. So moving over to Truck 74. Truck 74, which is a city-funded apparatus, is staffed with 2 personnel right now. It is typically 2 engineers, although certain days of the week it is 1 captain, 1 engineer. So obviously not to that traditional staffing level. Next slide, please. So in order to bring Truck 74 up to traditional staffing, what we would need to do is have 1 captain, 1 engineer, 1 firefighter on at all times. And so we run 3 shifts. And so you would need 3 captains, 3 engineers, and 3 firefighters. That's a big lift from where we're at, which I'll show you here in a minute, but that would be the goal long term. And until we reach that goal, Truck 74 will continue to be the only 2-person staffed apparatus in Butte County. So this is a short video, about 3 minutes.
By NFPA 1710, the industry standard for career fire departments. But what is it? And what does it mean for our community? Your house in life, it's your worst night. Now, just 3 minutes, a fire can grow 15 times larger than when it started, and it continues to grow bigger and faster every second. The clock starts ticking. There's a shrinking window of opportunity to save lives and property. You want a full crew of firefighters to put it out quickly, or you may suffer a catastrophic loss. But how many are enough? 50, 20, 40? How do you decide? Fortunately, there's an internationally recognized industry standard. It's called NFPA 1710, and it's based on scientific evidence and research that establishes how many firefighters are needed to put out each fire and rescue anyone trapped. At a fire scene, you want a firefighter doing every job that needs to be done to save you and your house. And at a fire, there's a lot that needs to be done, like stretching the hose, hooking to a hydrant, searching for trapped people, venting the hot gases, and much more. For a low-hazard single-family house fire, NFPA 1710 specifies a minimum of 15 firefighters dispatched in the initial alarm. At an open-air strip shopping center or garden apartment fire, the standard specifies a minimum of 28 firefighters dispatched in the first alarm. And for fires in high-rise buildings at least 7 stories tall, the data show that the initial dispatch should be for a minimum of 43 firefighters. And that fire department should send additional firefighters to situations that are beyond the capability of the initial alarm. Regardless of the type of property, 1710 also sets the time of arrival on scene within 4 minutes for the first engine with 4 firefighters. The 1710 standard for both response time and crew size is based on scientific evidence, not opinion. National Institute of Standards and Technology, known as NIST, and its partners conducted extensive research to document the optimal crew sizes for various types of structures. As a decision maker, you and firefighters share a common goal. Everyone gets out alive. So when the house is on fire, just remember it takes a minimum of 15 firefighters to put it out. And the quicker the response time, the better the outcome for everyone. For more information, talk to your local firefighters.
Okay, so
Listen.
the reason I share the video instead, because I could have told you that a lot quicker, but the reason I share the video is when I come to you saying that we need more staffing long-term, it's not based on my opinion. I support that, but I'm not making that up. That's proven based on research that's been done and it's in the standards that we're supposed to abide by. So with our regional fire protection that you have through the agreement with CAL FIRE, you are receiving 15 firefighters on the initial dispatch, and that doesn't go through another dispatch center to get there. It goes through a single point, and all the resources begin responding immediately when that phone call is made. So getting our current staffing model up to the 3, 3, and 3, which you see down there at the bottom that we need. Looking up at the current staffing on the top chart, the county's paying for the 3 of each position there. And then you see the city's paying for 1 fire captain, 4 engineers, no firefighters, and 1 communication operator. That communication operator is a dispatcher. That's going to remain a constant. Nothing needs to change with that. That's just something that's been written into the agreement for years. Next slide, please. So our proposed 26-27 agreement is to increase the engineer by 1. So we go from we were at 1 fire captain, 4 engineers. We'd like to go to 1 fire captain, 5 engineers, and that total price tag is a little over $1.5 million. Slide, please. So this is it's a little bit cut off, unfortunately, but this is a comparison of what our contracts looked like over the years and going back about 6 years and the level of service that we provided each year. So you can see 2021 top line there. We were at 1.3 million, and we were already then at 1 fire captain, 5 engineers. So where we're trying to get to for next year, we had 37,000 in overtime just to cover behind people. And then you can see we did increase a couple of years later that the comm is the comm of the dispatcher. We did increase that later on, but the contract cost at the time was 1.3 million. Then 21, 22, and 23, you can see that there were probably some budget hard times there. And so the city quit paying for 2 of those engineers and dropped it down to 3, but the city used a SAFER grant to pay essentially $300,000 to staff those 2 engineers to fill them in while the city recovered. You guys follow me so far? So the city was paying roughly $900,000 for those 2 years, and we're still getting the same level of service. However, in 23, 24 there, the SAFER grant went away, and so did the positions. So they were not funded at the time. So we lost those 2 positions. Those 2 engineer positions, the contract cost was $1.1 million. And then a couple years later, 24, 25, 25, 26, formatting's a little different on this, unfortunately. So you're losing the bottom line there. But 25, 26, we increased it. So that would have been Chief Fowler worked with you to increase back up to 1 engineer to get closer to where we were. He left a $85,000, so he increased the overtime there to make this year's impact to kind of soften that blow so that you were already used to paying a little bit more money there. So raise the overtime. And then this year, we're going to, you can't see it there, but one captain, 5 engineers. And then we're dropping the overtime down to 30,000 so essentially we're absorbing 50,000 on there. And so that's where we're at for this year. So a couple other things I want to point out to you. The actual bill, the column 3rd from left there shows that we have always given back some portion of the contract, that we've never billed for as much as we had contracted for. And some years are more than others. And then on the far right column, that's revenue from equipment rental. Years ago, I want to say sometime around 2006 or so, the city of Gridley purchased a Type 3 fire engine, and it sits in the apparatus bay. They have the ability to cross-staff that fire engine if they're going to a wildland fire or something to put less wear and tear on the other apparatus. And so that engine also can be staffed and sent to state fires. And from the minute that they're dispatched out on state fires, the city's getting money back into the budget from equipment rental of the state. So you can see some years, the bigger fire years, it's brought in a fair amount of revenue. I think the total there is about 824,000, which is cut off on the bottom, unfortunately. But about 824,000 brought in over 6 years back into the city. Next slide, please. Okay, so my goal for the city and the staffing is that after this year, we move forward with what I just proposed, and then we'll have the 1 captain, 5 engineers. We convert, so just think of those as positions. So a total of 6 positions that we're paying for that are on the ladder truck. Then we take 2 of those engineers and we roll them into captains, which is not a huge increase in funding to make those 2 engineers into captains. So now you have 3 engineers, 3 captains, and then we would still need to work on the firefighters. So the firefighter positions would probably have to initially come from a SAFER grant, and then we would need to look to fund those long term. And in order to kind of spell out how that looks, I think it would be wise to explore in future years doing a multi-year contract, and we can build in anticipated cost for, increases in budget, whatever. So apologize for all the logos moving. That wasn't on top of that before. Okay, so benefits of regional fire protection, of having the agreement, right? So regional fire protection is probably one of the biggest. Like I said, when we dispatch resources, or when the call for fire comes in, you're getting resources dispatched immediately regardless of jurisdiction. So every single fire that we run here in Gridley, you're getting the Biggs fire engine, you're getting probably the Richville fire engine, a lot of them you're getting the Palermo fire engine. And so all of that's happening immediately as soon as the call is made. You have a county-owned facility here that the fire station runs out of. And so because we use that, there's no cost to the city for that facility maintenance or day-to-day expenses on that facility. The county-funded engine runs first out for all calls. Occasionally, the truck may pick something up first out just because of where they're at or something like that. But typically that engine is dispatched first out. And so they're running probably pretty close to 80% of the calls in the city. And so that wear and tear and that maintenance on the engine, or is on the engine, which is paid for by the county, and limits the amount of wear and tear on the ladder truck. So, and then let's see. Oh, the state and county. So when there's a need behind a city person working at the fire station, if they're on vacation, sick leave, FMLA, whatever it might be, we have a relief pool. We have extra people that work for the state or the county, or are paid by one or the other. And so if those people are extra, they are plugged into those open positions, and the city doesn't have to pay the overtime cost. Next slide, please. We also have access to the Prevention Bureau if there's a need for assisting in fire investigation. I spoke to the rental income. And then the volunteer program is funded through the county. The city does not, the city benefits from the volunteer program, but it does not pay anything into the volunteer program. So a city, somebody living here in the city can be a volunteer through the county, and the volunteers will be dispatched to fires in both the city and the county, but there's no expense to the city. And then more and more with the fire service, there's new mandates all the time. One of the big ones is on our personal protective equipment. So it costs about $10,000 per set of personal protective equipment, PPE, for firefighters to wear. And due to having to wash them and still being able to respond while washing them, most employees have 2 sets of PPE. So it's $20,000 for every firefighter. And then now there's new standards on how the life of the PPE, even if it's not hardly used or sits on a shelf for 10 years, it is out of service at 10 years. It has to now be inspected annually and sent into a vendor to be inspected, which is a pretty large cost and pretty challenging, but that's all handled through the state as well. Some of the other mandates that we have to deal with are ladder testing, SCBA, pump testing, and then I mentioned that PPE. So not all those are huge expenses, but they are things that have to be coordinated and dealt with. You have to have specialized personnel. So a small fire department, you may not have somebody who's trained to do those items. We bring in people to handle all the apparatus from across the county and for all the contracts to do it at one time. Next slide, please. Okay, Gridley does not pay for any of the chief officers. So I'm personally paid for by the state of California. Mike Conity, our battalion chief, is paid by the county, and he covers one shift. Then you have 2 other shifts that are funded through the county or state also. So all your chief officer coverage is coming from being in part of this agreement. The shop services, the city does pay a small amount for shop services, and that gets used if the ladder truck or any of its equipment needs to go out to for any kind of specialized repair. However, all the diagnosing and the basic maintenance is handled out of our shop and rarely billed back to the city. Anytime that there's a fire here in the city, when the engine and the ladder truck are committed, or it even could be a traffic collision or something, we immediately backfill with other resources. So Biggs would bump down and Richville cover Biggs, or Palermo might come over. And so you're getting cover resources into the city with no charge to you. And then emergency medical dispatching, or EMD, is something that's required now for EMS dispatching, and that's instructions on how, like pre-arrival instructions and how to prioritize whether it's a code 2 or code 3 call. And so that is handled out of our dispatch. And from talking with some of our other cooperators, that's becoming a big expense for smaller departments now. And then 2 in 2 out, so you have your engine, the fire engine and the ladder truck that are sitting side by side. So when a fire breaks in downtown and you need somebody to go in immediately, by having both apparatus sitting there, even though one's paid county and one's paid city, they pull in together and they have what we're required to abide by, which is 2 in, 2 out, meaning that when 2 firefighters go interior, there's 2 outside to support and rescue them if needed. And so that is met instantly on the majority of our calls. When they're in the station together, they're able to go in and fight fire, and that equates to more saved, whether it's citizens or dollars in structure costs. Unfunded liabilities, so pensions and healthcare are paid for by so you're paying for it up front, but you know that's what you're paying for. You're not paying for the long-term disability or those types of things down the road. You know that once you get through your year and you've budgeted for it, that's what you're going to pay. And then a small savings, also the office staff that are there to support our personnel. And I close with this slide because I think that this is a good picture of the success of the agreement here in Gridley and regional fire protection in general. This speaks to the skill level of firefighters that we have here in the city, and also just how effective the agreement is. This was we're all familiar with the building, right? 110 Virginia, north wind day with the wind blowing the fire toward the remainder of the building, the largest building, I think it's the largest structure in the city probably. And so very well established fire before we even got a dispatch. This fire took over 50 people to put it out. Just like you saw in an FPA video, it said 43 people for a high rise or a very large building. So 50 people responded to this building, and they were able to cut the fire off against the wind and save the remainder of the structure. And while that structure I know gives us some heartache now, that could be the Safeway complex, the strip mall there. It could be Avatar Foods. It could be any other large building here. And I believe that our firefighters would operate the same way. So I feel that that's a success story for the agreement between the city of Gridley and CAL FIRE. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Yes.
Question, if I may, Mayor. So going back to the PPE, you said 10,000 per firefighter, and this might be hard to specify, but is that something that City of Gridley's contribution pays for, or do you think that that's county fully funded?
Most of it is county funded because we purchase in bulk through the state. We do throw money at PPE when we get the match grants. That would be I think the biggest contribution that the city makes into PPE is when we know we're going to get free money for spending the same amount of money. So there is some contribution for the city of Gridley, but not nearly that full amount for every firefighter that's funded through the city.
And then going back to the unfunded liabilities, so that's you referring to the city of Gridley is not paying towards any CalPERS retirement for firefighters?
It's built into the contract cost. So you're paying you're paying for, if it was a state employee, it is a state employee, but if they were being funded by the state would pay that amount, you know, they would pay for their salary plus their benefits. And so it's just the same way, when you pay the state for a firefighter, you're paying the benefits and the salary. So you're paying it up front, and it goes into our pension and healthcare system. But then you're not paying for it down the road. When those costs go up, the state's gonna pay for that, not the city.
And then just my last question would be, and I know I missed the top of your presentation, but can you share with us an update on the volunteer program? And if we have any currently with the city of Gridley who might be residents of Gridley, if people are interested in applying for the program, can you give us a quick synopsis as to how they go about that?
Yeah, so the city does not have its own volunteer program. It participates in the county's program. So all of those volunteers go through our initial training, and we do a recruitment period in September, and then October-ish, we bring them on, we do interviews with them, bring them on, and then we start we call it academy, but it's weekend training, and we have a lot less people than would interview show up for those trainings. And so I don't have numbers for you right now. We do not have a whole lot of volunteers right now. I'm not sure whether they live in the city or the county. But yeah, we definitely have a need for more volunteers. It's just the requirements, going back to the mandates, like the volunteers have to meet a lot of the same mandates that I do, and I get paid to do this 5 days a week, and they do not. And so the trade-off for volunteers is just asking a lot from people that are volunteering their time. And those mandates are not coming from CAL FIRE, they're coming from state and federal regulations.
So that includes meeting physical preparation,
Yeah.
mental,
Yeah, and then
class.
annually they have to recertify on certain things, and a lot of it's not super fun, so it gets frustrating to some of the people.
And I know it's volunteer, but is there any type of stipend? Like, is there PPE provided for?
They get paid a small amount for each response.
I do have a question.
Yes.
So what we're currently paying and what you're asking for is about $120,000 difference.
Correct.
I don't know the question.
Any other questions?
What question?
No,
Council? The question.
it is not a, we don't need a. Google Drive.
No,
It'll come back up for vote later.
I'll open up the public comment. This. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. There's no roll call necessary, this is just informational. So, at that, we're gonna